Welcome to today's Atticus Advantage webinar, 3 things you should do now to give your law firm a head start in the new year. I'm Mike Wells, the organizer of today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to introduce you to a little bit of information about us if you aren't familiar. Atticus was founded in 1989 to provide in-depth, ongoing support and accountability programs for lawyers and law firms that help you increase your gross revenues and personal income, reduce the stress and the number of hours you spend in the office, have a greater sense of career satisfaction, and allow you more time for family and personal interests. Our programs, workshops, and webinars are designed to streamline the management of your practice, increase your revenue, reduce your stress, and balance your personal and professional life. Before I introduce our presenter today, if you have any questions, you can chat them in to the GoToWebinar chat dashboard. You can also raise your hand with the hand icon. And if time allows us in the hour, we'll call upon you at the end to answer those questions. You can also email your questions to grow@atticusadvantage.com, and we will follow up with you within 1 business day. Today's presenter is Steve Riley. Steve helps attorneys grow their practices. He has a way of helping you if you're stuck and guide you through a process of self-discovery and major breakthroughs. He is a shareholder in Atticus, which is the largest practice management company in the nation, working with solo and small practice firm owners. He's created the Practice Growth Program, the Dominate Your Market Program, and the Double Your Revenue Workshop. Prior to joining Atticus, Steve built and sold his own law practice. He's the author of several books and has won a national award for practice innovation and has written a national call on practice management. Without further ado, I want to welcome Steve. Thank you, Steve, for presenting this today. This is a great topic, and I know that our attendees will get a lot out of it.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. I always enjoy talking about anything I can that might perhaps help our brothers and sisters of the bar get ahead in the market. So I'm really thrilled to be here today. So today's topic is 3 things you should do now to give your law firm, basically you, a head start for next year. How do you get ahead of the new year? So there are a couple things that I want to talk about before we dive into the strategies. Number 1, I really have 2 basic goals. Number 1 is to walk through the 3 things to give you a head start. And number 2 is to talk to you for a few minutes about considering how we can help you perhaps achieve those goals. So there's no way that you'll probably be able to be completely successful on your own without having some form of support or coaching to help you. Now, that's not, I guess that's kind of a blanket statement. My experience is that we can help add velocity and add a lot more success quicker and faster for you. You can totally do this on your own if you take it on. So here's my agenda. 1, I want to spend a few minutes distinguishing a mindset around growth. How do you think about growth and what a mindset means? Because that's one of the key elements. As Mike said, we were founded in 1989. We have really spent a lot of time looking at what it takes to grow a law firm. We work with about 500 law firms across the country actively. We've done programs for thousands of law firms. We've had alliances with most of the major bar associations. So we've had a lot of in-the-trench experience working with lawyers and helping them think through how to grow. And one of the most profound things that we've learned is it has a lot to do with your mindset. So we'll spend just a few minutes distinguishing that and talking about that. 2 is you'll spend some time talking about 3 things that we're going to recommend that you should do now. And this is from the perspective of working with all the law firms that we work with. These are things that we recommend that they do. We'll give you a free worksheet out of today's workshop that you can hopefully take and use. It won't be any value to you unless you use it. And then talk about a couple of action steps. So it's a pretty straightforward agenda. Now, with that being said, I just want to spend a few minutes looking at this particular tool. It's up on your computer, so if you've got a couple of different screens, just spend a few minutes looking at this so the graphic will make sense. If you're listening to this and you're not watching this, it's going to be a little bit harder to follow along, but I'll do my best to explain it. One of the things that we do as lawyers is that we focus on being fantastic as best we possibly can around our legal skills. So as lawyers, we spend a lot of time and effort becoming better lawyers. We work really hard at being a great lawyer from a legal technical perspective, whether that's drafting better or doing better courtroom work, better client service work, and our legal skills are the bedrock of our law firm. However, we've learned that a lot of lawyers, especially solo and small firm attorneys, see that their revenues cap out. So after a period of time, somewhere around 5 to 10 years of practice, we see lawyers see that the revenues start to flatten, and they can't figure out why. And the primary reason is that their business skills, not their legal skills, are what's holding the firm back. So if you're really looking to grow your firm, these are what we consider the 4 foundations of growth for a solo and small firm attorney. One is time management. If you're trying to grow your firm, shifting your time management skills and thinking about your time management differently is absolutely probably the number 1 skill. 2 is client development marketing. And this is a dangerous one for a lot of lawyers because a lot of us went to law school to avoid anything that feels like marketing, anything that feels like sales, in my case, anything that looks like math. That's a whole other conversation. And we have a tendency to really be reluctant to develop good business skills around selecting and developing great client relationships and, quite frankly, great referral relationships. 3 is building a great team. In one of my workshops, I have the 7 stages that I see lawyers go through in finding and hiring great people. And sometimes as lawyers, we're just so happy to have someone that will show up and do their job that we settle on that person being our right-hand person or our only person for the next 10 to 20 years of a career. My experience is the lawyers that really have tremendous growth in their firm is they don't settle. They constantly look at how to cultivate and build a great team. How do you find, hire, manage, and lead terrific people is a critical element to growing a law firm. And last but not least is cash flow and profitability. Understanding how to manage your cash flow, how to manage your profitability, how to understand how to think through your profitability and impact your numbers. All of these cornerstones are the foundations to help you grow your firm. Your legal skills are assumed by us and assumed pretty much by anyone to be good, if not great. Now, with that being said, the legal skills unfortunately won't get it done anymore. I mean, if you can draft a trust a little bit better, or if you can draft a motion a little bit better, or if you can argue in front of a jury a little bit better, it probably won't do anything to improve your time management, probably won't do anything to improve your marketing, it probably won't do anything to improve your team, and more likely, it won't do anything to improve your cash flow or profitability. It might, but more than likely it won't. So at some point, the hidden secret or the ceiling that most lawyers smash their head up against that's over and over and over for growth is the lack of business skills. So when you look at this, one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to consider is that what is your mindset around growth when it comes to these 4 primary business skills? What's your mindset around shifting and learning how to be better at managing your time? What's your mindset and thinking around client development? What's your mindset and thinking around hiring and managing and training people? What's your mindset around improving your cash flow, your pricing, your profitability? Because these are probably, for most solo and small firm attorneys, the essential areas that if they adjusted their thinking just a little bit, it could have a profound and dramatic impact on their practice. So as we go through thinking about the 3 things we're going to recommend that you play for next year or do next year, pay attention to the words and the thoughts that come up in your mind, because how you think, how you interact, how you play around these 4 primary skill sets is really the hidden ceiling, the invisible ceiling that prevents the growth in your firm. The most profound thing it took me to learn in growing my own practice and working with other lawyers and growing their own practice is really it's how you think about the growth of your firm that holds you back more so than anything else. It's usually not because the market, you feel commoditized in the market. It's usually not because you have too many competitors. It's usually not because there's too many lawyers on TV. It's not because, you're in a small town or a big town. It's usually really, at the end of the day, how you think about these core topics that hold your practice back. So as we walk through these 3 recommendations, I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to what comes up in your mind and just pay attention to it and explore, well, why am I thinking that way? What does that mean? Why is that my first reaction? And I know it can be somewhat confronting to have someone over the phone challenge your thinking a little bit or encourage you to challenge your thinking. But just play with it. You don't have to commit to anything. We're just exploring things on this webinar. You're not committing to anything. But I'm just going to invite you to think that perhaps how you think about these core topics may be one of the things that's holding you back in your practice. So with that, let's start working on what you need to work on for next year. So here's one of the things I'd like you to do. If you're following along at your desk, and hopefully you're not in the car, just take a few minutes and write down the answers to these questions. Over the past year, did your income grow or did it go back? Was it stagnant? Now, this is an important question. If you're sitting here going, I don't know yet, it's not the end of the year, I'm going to encourage you to consider the possibility that you don't know your numbers well enough. Because you're the last month of the year, you should pretty much know exactly where you're at. If you're a contingency fee practice, I totally understand that you're trying to settle a few cases for the end of the year. Family law, you're trying to get paid. Estate planning, you might be cranking a few cases through by the end of the year. But I think most of us are should be pretty much within 10 to 20% knowing what our end of the year numbers look like based on that. 2, what were your referrals like this year? Did your referrals increase or decrease? How did you do with your team this year? Were you happy with your team? Did you lose some key players? Did you add some key players? Did things move slowly for you? Were you unhappy with how your team performed this year? And did you feel during the day or the week or the month that you were out of control and some of the growth projects that you had slowed to a halt? So just write down your thinking for a minute on this. So, what was your income like? And writing is important. I know you might be thinking about, but just take a moment and write it down. And it's really 4 questions: income, referrals, what you think about your team, how do you feel about being in control of your projects, and in control of your practice and in control of your projects. So just capture any thinking you have about that. Terrific. Now, obviously, if you want next year to be different, then we must start planning for growth now. And I'm going to walk you through pretty much 3 key strategies to improving your growth for next year. Now, the first one is very simple, but hard to do. Number 1 is to actually take out your calendar for next year and plan out your initiatives for next year. Now, these are some suggestions that I have. These are things that I do, and these are things that I recommend to my clients. But I would pull out the year at a glance, and first and foremost, make sure I have my children's school schedule and have that built into my calendar, because nothing upsets me more than finding out my kids have a day off and I plan to work on top of that day off, or I plan to work during their spring break. So I always, for me personally, and it's not something that you have to do if you don't have kids, obviously, but I always try and figure out what my kids' school calendar looks like so I can plan my vacation time around their vacation time. 2 is to go ahead and protect time off for your vacations. Now, this is a big challenge for lawyers. It's not unusual for me to have a lawyer that comes into our workshops and they haven't had a really decent vacation in a decade. And when I say a decent vacation, let me define what I mean by vacation. I mean during at least a 1-week period, minimally, they can take time off away from the office, and during that 1-week period, they don't have to check email and they don't have to take phone calls from the clients. So you want to start thinking If you're thinking, well, I take vacations all the time, but if you're checking your email and you're taking phone calls from the office and you're taking phone calls from clients, you're not taking vacation, you're just working remotely. You may be in a better place, you may be spending more money for it, but you're still working. You may be working part-time, but you're still working. The downside with this, it never, ever, ever gives you the opportunity to recover, rest, or rejuvenate. The downside with never recovering, resting, or rejuvenating is that your thinking doesn't improve. Your creativity doesn't improve. You just kind of get to the Groundhog Day experience. So you just kind of go and go and go and go and go and expect somehow your thinking and your creativity and your problem solving to get better when you're just running yourself into the ground. I always think about the golden goose story. So if you had a golden goose, would you work the golden goose to death? Would you over-caffeinate it? Would you make sure it worked on weekends? Would you, would you feed it bad food? Or would you take your golden goose and allow it to exercise? Would you give your golden goose time off? Would you make sure your golden goose is protected from certain stressful events and making sure that golden goose has time to really rejuvenate and get healthier and stronger? Because in most practices, the lawyer for the practice is the golden goose, and they treat themselves terribly. So I'm just going to encourage you, and I don't have a lot of time to do it on today's webinar, to say, look, I got to draw a line in the sand sooner or later and just say, I got to protect myself from my own practice. I've got to protect myself from myself, and I got to protect my family from the overcommitments that I make that ruins vacations and significant family events. So I'm just going to encourage you to really look at this year and see how you did on that, and look at next year and see how you can improve it. Are there significant family events coming up that you can go ahead and protect for next year? And health and wellness. What are you going to do to make sure that you calendar and protect yourself from a health and wellness perspective? Because you are the golden goose. So do we need to make sure that we plan time in the morning, every morning, that you have an opportunity to exercise, you have an opportunity to meditate, you have an opportunity to do whatever it is, a spiritual practice of some form that helps you feel better and concentrate more and perform better as an attorney. So part of this, of strategy one, is looking at how do we protect you and your time off for rest and rejuvenation. Part two is to look at your marketing calendar for the year. So when you plan out next year, look and say, is there a season to my practice? Some practices are very seasonal, where they have a tremendous first quarter, a great second quarter. Summer, everybody goes away, it's very, very quiet, and then fourth quarter is gangbusters. And you'll see this ebb and flow in the cash flow. If that's the case, look at this past year and see if there was an ebb and flow in the cash flow, and see if that had anything to do with the seasonality of your practice, or perhaps it had something to do with your marketing or the lack thereof. But look at it and say, okay, in next year, when I plan for this, how can I go ahead and plan out and anticipate any type of seasonality I may have to my practice? Two is if you have a workshop schedule. Some lawyers do what I call retail workshops, where they market directly to the public. Some lawyers do continuing education programs where they do workshops through referral sources. Some lawyers speak as part of their marketing. If you do that as part of your marketing, can we go ahead and start planning it out for next year? And then last but not least, when we think about marketing for next year, can we go ahead and start setting down our marketing goals for next year? Is it possible to identify what type of new referral sources that you want to identify to work with? What type of new clients you want to generate for next year? What are your marketing goals for next year? Now, I know I'm going through this very fast. After the webinar is over, we'll send you a link and you can listen to this in a little bit more slow manner. You can kind of do the exercises that I'm recommending in a little bit slower and probably thoughtful way. But right now, I'm going to continue to push you through this presentation as effectively as possible. Next one, and this is a very important one for me. I think this is a secret that a lot of lawyers don't get, that I've taught a lot of my clients. I'm going to kind of pull back the curtain so you can see this and look at it a little bit. but I'm going to recommend that you block out project time on your calendar. Now, the projects can be named later. You may not know what the projects look like. And I'm going to put a chart up, a worksheet up on the screen so you can see this. This is a time template, and it's one of the things that we teach a lot of our clients to do, both through the one-on-one coaching and also through the practice growth program, which is how to think through and plan out an ideal week. Now, this is a wonderful example of one. I'm going to walk you through it, while at the same time that I'm walking you through it, you can actually download an example of the Atticus time template worksheet directly from the GoToWebinar dashboard that you can just click the little PDF where it says handouts and download this, and it's the free worksheet that we mentioned. Now, this is a great example of one. So this would be an ideal week that we would work with a lawyer on trying to think through. You can see at 7 a.m. he or she has set aside time to exercise. Now, obviously, if they're in a litigation practice, there may be a week where they have hearings in the morning or depots or something like that. So we may have an example like on Wednesday that they have casework or hearings there that we're going to plan for or anticipate. But on this example, Monday might be they're going to have their cash flow focus or meeting, which is one of the tools that we teach our clients to use. They may budget time to respond to calls and emails. And here in pink is what I'm calling a project block. So we put strategic growth projects. And then we did this for Monday, and we also did it for Friday. So if you look at the week, we have a strategic growth project here, lunch with a referral source, and then the afternoon casework or hearings, whatever that may be, and we end the day with phone calls or emails. Tuesday, you have in green client meetings, and then in blue, a marketing appointment. And then Wednesday looks like a whole day for production, possibly cases. And then Thursday, client meetings as well. And then Friday, we have pink again for strategic growth projects. Now, the intention here is that we know that the lawyer is going to have projects to work on. And projects for me are critical to help you grow your practice. Now, project is distinct from a case. So you have time already allocated to work on your cases, but projects are going to be things that may help you grow your practice. It could be a marketing project. It could be a new systems project. It could be a project related to technology. It could be something that, you're writing a book or you're working on a presentation, whatever it may be, but it's something that's designed to help you grow your firm. The problem is with a lot of lawyers is they schedule in everything else other than time for their growth projects. So if you're really looking to grow your firm, one of the key strategies that's always overlooked is that you don't calendar time to work on growth projects. So one of the recommendations that we have for you for next year is to take the time now and block out time to work on growth projects. Now, in this example, this would be something I would do with one of my clients, where I would say, okay, let's work on Monday and Friday. So Monday we have budgeted from 9:30 to 11:30 to work on a growth project, and Friday from 9:30 to 11:30. Now, for me personally, if I'm coaching and working with a client, I'm going to say, let's put both down. Now, realistically, more than likely what will happen is one of those will get absorbed by a crisis or a problem that will crop up during the week. And one of those will be sacrificed. Hopefully, we will not sacrifice both blocks, we'll keep one block. But in my mind, if I can get 2 growth project blocks on an average week, I know that at least a decent chance that one of them will survive the week, and I have my lawyer working on projects that will help them grow the firm forward rather than just running in place. So hopefully, and it's really hard to tell because we're doing this via webinar, hopefully this makes sense to you, that if you're really looking to grow your firm, take the time now to start to calendar growth projects. You may not know what those growth projects are going to be, but we want to go ahead and protect the blocks in your week in advance. You can always give up the blocks. Not my recommendation, but you can always give up the blocks in the future. But if you don't have them there, you will never, ever, ever get them put there. because you'll just say, well, I'll try and do that on the weekend, or I'll try and do this later, I'll try and do this at night, and you never will. So I'm going to strongly recommend that if there's one takeaway for you, in addition to taking time off, protecting your time off, planning out your marketing activities, and it would be to go ahead and protect and plan out your growth projects for next year. Great, so that's initiative number one, or strategy number one. Go ahead and take the time to calendar out next year. 2, let's take a look at how you did last year from a referral marketing perspective. Now, there's a lot of different ways of getting business in the door. You can do online advertising by pay-per-click. There's an incredible amount of development in different social media platforms on advertising to drum up business. Obviously, you can see the impact of advertising on TV. But, you know, from my viewpoint, at the end of the day, the best form of business is referral-based business. Why? Because typically the value of the case is higher. 2, your sell cycle is typically lower, and you feel great. So for us, with all the law firms that we work with, we see that the predominant way that most lawyers get business and get prospective clients is through referrals. So if this is the case, one of the most powerful things that you can do in planning for next year is kind of audit how you did this year. How did you do this year in developing referrals? First and foremost, and these are kind of 4 audit questions that I always ask clients. Do your referral sources know how to refer to your firm? Do they know how to introduce you? Do they know how to talk about you? Now, you may think they do, but my experience is that sometimes they don't. And how they can introduce you can make a huge difference in what the perception might be from the prospective client. So I'll give you 2 examples. Example 1, and this has happened to me, so I really can appreciate the impact of this, is I had a really nice referral source say, call Steve. He's a friend of mine. He'll give you a deal. Yep, that's what he said. Call Steve. He's a friend of mine. He will give you a deal on your legal problem. So already I'm trapped. So my friend who refers them their friend says, call Steve, tell him I referred you, and then he'll give you, quote, a deal on your legal case. I'm trapped. I'm already commoditized by my own dear friend who thinks he's doing me a favor by referring me a case, and think he's doing his new friend, or his friend that he's referring in a favor, by, quote, negotiating a deal. The better way, and so this happened to me, I had to call my friend who referred the person in and say, hey, look, you killed me on that. You killed me. It was a complex case. The client was a problem, and it really wasn't a great case. And you told them I would give them a deal. So I was really like up against the wall from, ground zero with that case. So I had to talk to my friend about how to refer work in. I said, look, if you're going to refer work in, what I'd like you to do is talk about that I'm good, and that I'm expensive, and that I'm worth it. And if somebody's looking for a deal, I can refer them out to someone that I know will give them a good service for a reasonable price. But I'd prefer you to be referring me as the best, not as the cheapest. Now, for me, I had to go and pay attention to how some of my friends and colleagues were referring work in, because I had to pay attention to what they were saying about me. And I had to kind of teach them, like, don't say that, say this instead. 2 is, does your team, your client, does your team, your support team, know how to accept, track, and nurture, as well as cultivate referrals? Are we paying attention to how do we accept referrals? 3, do we have an acknowledgement and thank you process? This is a pretty straightforward situation, but I got to tell you, when I was actively practicing, I referred out a lot of family law work to other lawyers, and I was stunned that 3 out of 4 times I would not even get an email back from the family law lawyer saying, thanks for the referral. One family law lawyer would send me a thank you note. At the end of the year, she would send me a nice bottle of something. It only took me about a year to figure out to send everything to her, rather than the other lawyers I was sending work to, who didn't even bother to send me an email back saying, Thanks for the referral, thanks for the thought, thanks for the introduction. So it was a big lesson to me as a practitioner to really examine and look at, am I thanking people for the referral? Am I taking time to build a system to acknowledge them for thinking of me and thinking of, of me as a potential solution to whatever their friend or prospect or client's dealing with? So that would be number 3 for me in my audit referral process. And 4, this is a big one. It's stunning to me how many times lawyers miss this. Do you have an established means in writing, follow-up process? So you may get a referral, the prospect may schedule a meeting and then cancel the meeting because something happened, or they got sick, or their kid had something happen. Whatever the case may be, they canceled. What is your follow-up process to recapture and re-engage that prospect? I'm amazed at how many lawyers, when I start to work with them, or our company starts to work with them, and they're like, well, we're really having a cash flow problem. We're really having a rough year. And I'll say something like, okay, great. Let's go back and look at all the cases that you referred that you didn't get hired on this year. And sometimes I'm blown away with the fact that they get these leads and they just drop them basically either into an electronic file or into somewhere in Outlook or into a paper file and never follow up. They have no follow-up process. So if you're looking to grow your firm for next year, these are the 4 recommendations I would recommend to you now. Number 1, do your referral sources know how to refer to you? 2, does your team know how to accept, track, nurture, and cultivate referrals? 3, do you have a great acknowledgement and thank you process? And 4, what's your established follow-up process on leads that don't convert to clients? Critical 4 questions on building a referral process. Last but not least of your referral-based marketing is your website. What's your website look like to a prospect? Are you represented on there with a smiling photo and a friendly written bio? I mean, honestly, I'm amazed at how many times I look at some lawyer's bio and they start talking about who they clerked with when they were in law school. I mean, the clients don't care. They really don't care. They really want to know, are you a likable person? Are you competent? Can they trust you? Will you return their phone call? How will you treat them? And a lot of lawyers are really marketing from the perspective of talking about how smart they are and where they went to law school, and talking about stuff that most clients really don't care about. 2, is there something they can read, listen to, or watch to educate themselves about their perceived need? Is there something that you have on their website that you can download, that they can read about, that you've written, that teaches them or educates them on what they perceive their need might be? One of the things I'm working with a lot of lawyers with right now are videos. And we're doing a tremendous amount of videos and posting them either on YouTube or on the firm's website, depending on what the website's like. And we're doing the videos off of smartphones. So whether that's your iPhone or your smartphone or whatever device that you have to be electronically leashed to your firm, it is amazing the technology that's available just in these simple devices, that you can put up frequently asked questions about your divorce case, or frequently asked questions about custody, or frequently asked questions about wills, and use those to educate people prior to the initial consultation. Next, is there a process for them to ask for more information or take the next step? So on your website, is there a process for them to get more information or say, yeah, I'd like to schedule an appointment? And if you're not sure what your website looks like, ask a couple of your referral sources to look at it and give you feedback. And ask them to look at it from the perspective of a prospective customer. What would a prospective customer that they would be referring to you look for on the website? So just kind of look at it, because a lot of the websites out there that we're, as lawyers, we're trying to save money, so we all have some canned websites that they're not necessarily ideal for prospective clients. It's just better than nothing. And if you're looking to really increase your business for next year, spend a little bit of time. Doesn't have to be a complete redo of the website, but spend a little bit of time thinking about these 4 questions. Does my photo look approachable? Does my bio sound friendly? Do I have something that I can provide them that will be free to help them get educated? Is there a process for them to get more information? And last but not least, have one of your key referral sources give you some feedback about what they think about your website from a prospect's perspective, not from their perspective, but from a prospect's perspective. Great. So now we've done initiative 1 or strategy 1. We've just completed 2. Now we're going to talk about strategy 3, which is the most important asset in your firm, which is you. You're the most important asset. And I start talking when we initially started the webinar around you're the golden goose. So are you taking good care of you? And really, for most solo and small firm attorneys, the biggest growth that they'll experience is when the lawyer themselves change something about their life. It could be everything from, I've seen lawyers increase their income dramatically by starting a exercise and diet program. I've seen lawyers, obviously increase their income and time off tremendously working with us. I've seen a lot of different impactful things that lawyers do when they invest in themselves. It is interesting to me how often lawyers don't invest in themselves. So I'm going to encourage you to spend a few minutes and think about this with me. So next year, as you look to grow your firm, how do you want to invest in your own development as a professional? Now, what I'm going to recommend is that you spend time focusing on your legal skills from the perspective of stuff that you're already doing. What I mean by that is I don't want you to look at expanding your legal skills in practice areas that you don't do. So try and manage what you're already doing from legal skills and take probably 20 to 50% of the time that you currently spent, or let me rephrase that, I'm sorry. Take 20 to 50% of the time that you spent last year, meaning this year, on developing your legal skills and reinvest it in business skills. Because I'm telling you, from my perspective, nothing has a greater impact on the growth of your practice than the refocus of your time and attention on your business skills. And we talked about this earlier during the webinar. These are what we call the solo and small firm foundations for growth. I'm telling you, if you can improve your client development skills by 10% or 20%, it can have an incredible impact on the bottom line and an incredible impact on stress. If you start to think about your A clients, your B clients, your C clients, and God forbid your D clients, more D clients means more misery, more stress, and less pay for everybody. But if you think, wow, for next year, if I can get 10 more A+ cases, that can make a fantastic difference for me. So how do I get those A+ cases? Who do I talk to? What do I say? How do I say it? And how do I make the request for business in a way that's ethical and appropriate, and I feel good about myself in making the request? That's really what the business skill of client development or referral-based marketing is about. 2, profitability and cash flow. A lot of lawyers don't pay any attention to their pricing, whether they're a fixed price or hourly shop. If they're contingency fee, they sometimes forget to spend some time on cultivating and building up the value of the case. 3, staffing. The ability to manage people, hold people accountable, have crucial conversations, hold people to objective performance measurements are some of the secret weapons that some of the best performing law firms use that most law firms don't even consider looking at. So your ability to find, hire, manage great people can be a secret competitive advantage in the marketplace. It is probably one of the things that I see some of the best performers, the best performing law firms really spend a lot of time in development on, which is just finding and developing great people. And then last but not least is your own time management. How are you spending your time? So earlier I was talking about strategic growth, excuse me, I'm talking too fast. I need to slow down. Earlier, I talked about strategic growth projects. And with strategic growth projects, I was recommending that you go ahead and budget anywhere from 2 hours to 4 hours a week all next year for projects that may develop. That in itself is a time management strategy. How to use the Atticus time template that we just downloaded for you, how to use that can be a significant time management shift for a lot of lawyers when it comes to practicing. To really grow your practice, one of the most important things that we have to be able to do is open up time on your calendar. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then the question becomes, what should your investment budget be into you? Should it be a percentage of your gross revenue? Should it be a percentage of your net revenue? What should it include? My recommendation is that you take somewhere around 3 to 5% of your net, or 2 to 3% of your gross, and use that as a budget to invest in you, into your own self-development. Now, I know that sounds like a luxurious investment and a lot of money, but quite frankly, my experience has been the lawyers that do that see a 2 times, 3 times, in some cases a 10 times greater return on the money that they invest in themselves. Think about it. If you're the golden goose and we can improve your marketing and we can improve your time management and we can get you quality time off, what will that do for the law firm? It can be incredibly impactful. It can make a significant difference from a gross revenue and a net income perspective. You are the golden goose for the firm. So thinking about what you want to reinvest or invest into you is an appropriate use of your money. It's probably the most appropriate and probably the smartest strategic use of your money that you could ever have as a practitioner. A lot of lawyers just throw money at their practice and never reserve anything for themselves. You're the most important asset. What do we have to do to set aside money for you? Now, this could be money for your own personal development. It could be money for your own physical improvement, like exercise, diet, health, whatever that might be. It could be money for an upgrading of your wardrobe. It could be money for upgrading your office, but it could be anything that it could be allocated towards anything that would make you a better practitioner. The only thing I would not want the money set aside for would be improving your legal skills. I'd want this money set aside first and foremost for improving your business skills or something that would improve your confidence related to your business skills. Your legal skills are going to be more than sufficiently taken care of in most practices. They're going to be more than sufficiently taken care of just by what you have to do during the year. All right, so we've talked about the 3 primary strategies. The question becomes, what's next for you? Now, I've got one thought about this. Hopefully you're following along, you're not driving, and if you're following along, look at this on the screen for a second. Yes, so this is a giant jelly bean jar with jelly beans overflowing the top of it. That's exactly what it is, but it's also a symbol for how most lawyers try and operate their day. If you're trying to implement any of these 3 strategies and your day looks like this, it's not going to work. This is why a lot of lawyers are unsuccessful at implementing change. They may read one of our books, they may go to one of our programs, they may talk like they're going to make some changes, but until they're able to adjust their time management to open up windows of time in their calendar and give themselves room to breathe. In this case, I have a half full jelly bean jar. The question becomes, how do you go from the full overflowing jelly bean jar to the half jelly bean jar? And that really boils down to your time management skills. So I'm going to recommend that if you're planning to have a fantastic year next year, to give yourself a significant gift this year. And that gift is to take the time to look at how you're currently running your firm. I would recommend that you go ahead and invest in what we would call a practice growth diagnostic. And it's probably the best gift that you can give yourself this year, honestly. It's incredibly cheap, but let me talk about what's included just so you can understand this. And I'm going to give you the opportunity then to go ahead and invest in one because it's probably the best gift you can give yourself. Number 1, it includes what we call the Focus Disc Advantage. Now, the DISC assessment is a personality assessment that talks about how you prefer It allows you to analyze how you prefer the world to work. And it really focuses on 4 predominant modalities. One is called the dominant personality, one's called the influencer personality, the other one's called steadfast, the other one's called conscientious. If you understand how you prefer the world to work, you'll notice that that profile dominates and influences everything that you do in your practice. If that's the case, then what we need to do is organize your practice around your DISC profile so that it puts the wind at your back, not in your face. So the focused DISC advantage allows you to understand certain things that are probably invisible to you right now about how you like to work, how you like to market, how you like to operate the firm. That's the first thing that's included in the diagnostic. 2 is that you do a assessment of your practice. And that assessment's around the solo and small firm foundations for growth. How are you doing on time management? How are you doing on marketing? How are you doing on profitability and cash flow? How are you doing on staffing? How are you doing? And have you just measured yourself against some of the basic measurements that we would look at for a new client? And then get feedback from one of our coaches, get feedback from one of our client service personnel, and they'll give you what we call the advisor growth analysis, which from there, they're going to say, these are probably the most 3 impactful actions that we hear that you probably should do with your practice. Now, with that being said, this is probably what I would say would be the most easy and significant investment that you can make in yourself for next year. So what is the investment? It's pretty simple. It's $295. That includes the practice assessment, the DISC, a complete written report, which is typically we charge $125 for that, and an hour teleconference with one of our practice growth diagnostic advisors on how to take your practice to the next level. How to get started? Well, there's 2 ways. First and foremost, you can go to our website, which is atticusadvantage.com, and where it says click get started, you can go right there and schedule and pay directly online, and it can be done according to whatever works for you. There's a wonderful video up there about what the practice growth diagnostic includes, and you can kind of determine where you're at, like the 3 key blocks that we hear. I'm a great lawyer. Why am I not making more money? My practice is overwhelming me, and I need less stress and more control, and I'm ready to play a bigger game. So it allows you to kind of think through your practice growth diagnostic, where you're at and where you would like to go with those 3 little boxes under that. Now, as I say that, there's a 100% money back guarantee, which is everything that we offer is 100% money back guarantee. So if you take the diagnostic and you're not happy and you don't believe it was worth it, we'll just refund your money. No questions asked, no problem. The person on the call with you will have more than enough discretion and authority just to refund your money. The second way that you can register for this, if you don't want to do it online, is I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, more than likely it'll be Larry or Jeff, that will reach out to you in the next couple of days and just say, hey, look, you attended this webinar. Are you ready to give yourself the gift of a practice growth diagnostic so you can set up next year to be the best year ever? And they'll call you, they'll follow up, see if there's anything that they can do to help you in making next year the best year ever. Now, my only warning is don't fall for what I call the 90-day Think About It program. Most lawyers are terrific problem solvers. We are by nature in the upper percent of our society, the upper 2% of our society intellectually. And consequently, we have a tendency to procrastinate. And we procrastinate through an incredible process called thinking about it. And the problem with thinking about it is that thinking about it doesn't provide you any learning. It's just a creative form of procrastination. You can't learn anything from thinking about something. You can only learn something by doing it. For example, if you're thinking about losing weight, or if you're thinking about getting in shape, you never can improve your health or your physical being by thinking about it. You actually have to do something about it. Your practice works the same way. It's not going to improve by thinking about it. It's only going to improve if you make a commitment and do something about it. So if you don't register for a practice growth diagnostic in the next day or so, I'm going to have Larry, or Jeff reach out to you and just say, hey, look, Steve asked me to call you. Want to know where you're at on registering for a practice growth diagnostic, and if there's anything else that we can do to help you with the growth of your firm to make next year the best year ever. With that, I'm going to go ahead and thank you for the time and attention that you spent with us.